has the specific atmosphere of a place that exists for purposes other than itself, a threshold rather than a destination, the lights reflecting on the dark water of the fjord in long broken lines, while the mountains on both sides rise into a sky that is not quite dark even now. The particular pale luminosity of Norwegian late summer pressing down from the north. The ferry itself is a working vessel, nothing decorative about it. Its lines utilitarian and its purpose clear. Crossing from one side of the fjord to the other in 40 minutes regardless of what the weather is doing, and regardless of how many passengers have decided to cross at this particular hour. Tonight there are few. The terminal's single light catches the rope coiled at the stern, and the white of the hull, and the slight movement of the water against the dock. The engines idle with a deep vibration that comes up through the dock planking and into the soles of your feet. A physical presence. The boat, breathing before it speaks. The smell of salt water and marine diesel, and something colder and cleaner underneath. The specific smell of very deep cold water that has come from a long way inland through the fjord and carries the mineral character of the mountains in it. You cannot smell this smell anywhere else in the world. Lena has crossed this fjord many times in her work. The research station on the eastern shore accessible only by ferry or by a road that adds 2 hours to the journey. And she has learned which seat to take and when to go outside for the crossing, and when the cold of this hour is better appreciated from behind glass. Tonight, she chooses the stern deck because the night is clear and the stars over the fjord are doing something she does not want to miss. She leans against the stern rail as the ferry pulls from the dock, watching the terminal lights shrink behind them, watching the black water open up, watching the stars multiply as the terminal lights fade and the fjord's own darkness takes over. The mountains are invisible silhouettes against the paler sky, their presence more felt than seen, the weight of them pressing the ferry into its narrow channel of dark water. The wind at the stern is cold in the way that Norwegian Fjord wind is always cold regardless of the season. A cold with clarity in it. A cold that sharpens rather than numbs. She is well dressed for it. Her research has brought her to this coast for 3 summers, and she has stopped apologizing for how much she loves it here. The scale of it, the way the landscape makes everything human feel correctly proportioned. He is the only other person on the stern deck, has chosen to be outside deliberately. A man in a dark jacket with his hands on the rail and his face toward the water. He has the posture of someone accustomed to physical work done outdoors, a ease with weather, a comfort with cold. She's aware of him in the way you are aware of someone when you are the only two people sharing an experience. The specific brief community of witnesses that forms when something beautiful or large is happening, and two strangers find themselves watching it from the same place. The fjord at midnight qualifies. The stars reflecting in the black water qualify. The cold moving over the surface of the water qualifies. They stand at separate sections of the rail for a while, in the comfortable silence of two people who have both independently made the decision to stand in the cold and watch the fjord rather than sit inside with the lights and the warmth and the other things people do on ferries at midnight. The shared decision creates something, not a conversation yet, simply an acknowledgement that two people have arrived at the same place by similar reasoning. The ferry reaches the middle of the fjord, where the mountains on both sides are equidistant, and the water is at its deepest, 400 meters of cold black below the hull. The weight of it comprehensible only as an idea, since the surface gives nothing away. The stars are directly overhead now, the Milky Way visible as a pale wash across the sky, in a way it never is near towns. The depth of the sky, as comprehensible as the depth of the water. He points out a constellation she's been trying to locate since they cleared the terminal lights, his hand tracing the shape in the air with the quiet authority of someone who knows the sky from long hours of looking at it. She follows the gesture. The stars find their pattern. This is the strange intimacy of astronomical knowledge, that once someone shows you the shape, the stars make you see it forever afterward. They become named and therefore known, and the person who named them for you becomes part of the sky. They are leaning on the same section of rail now, not having moved toward each other by any deliberate action, but simply having converged by small degrees over the middle of the crossing, the way objects drift toward the same current. The fjord around them is immense and cold, and completely indifferent to them, and yet this indifference creates rather than diminishes the small warm circle of shared attention they are standing inside. She tells him about the research station, the water temperature work, the way the fjord behaves as a thermocline system. He listens with a specific quality of attention that is rare enough to be immediately noticeable, the kind where the other person is not waiting for their turn to speak, but is genuinely in the middle of what you are saying. She's aware of speaking differently to someone who is actually listening, more specifically, more honestly, the words shaped by the attention they are moving into. They're still in the middle of the fjord when it happens. The ferry's engine at its steady working note, the water moving past the hull, the stars overhead in their cold, absolute clarity. She is turned slightly toward him during the conversation, and he toward her. And there is a moment when the talking stops, not because either of them has decided to stop talking, but because the conversation has arrived somewhere that is beyond what words are for. He moves the last small distance between them with a deliberateness that is also a question. She answers it by remaining exactly where she is, by not stepping back, by turning her face slightly upward. His hands find her face in the dark, cold from the rail, her own hands finding the front of his jacket as the distance closes. The kiss is cold on the outside and warm underneath. The contrast of the night air on their faces and the warmth of the contact itself, the specific warmth that two people generate against cold when they decide to share it. She can feel the slight roughness of his jaw and the steadiness of his hands, and the way the wind moves between them and then does not move between them because there is no longer any between. The fjord goes on around them in its complete darkness, the mountains invisible and present, the water 400 meters deep below the hull, the stars doing what stars do regardless of what happens on the small warm surfaces of ferries, crossing between shores in the middle of the night. They are not aware of any of this. They are aware only of each other, of the specific warmth of being this close to another person in a cold place, of the way the world reduces when two people decide that it should. The ferry engine changes its register slightly as the eastern shore approaches. They step back from each other with the unhurried quality of people who are not apologizing for what has happened. The research station lights are visible now, small and warm against the dark mountain. The ferry docks with the matter-of-fact efficiency of something that has crossed this stretch of water 10 Thames and will cross it 10,000 more. The rope goes over the bollard. The gangway comes down. The two other passengers who were inside the whole crossing emerge and walk off ahead of them. She picks up her bag and he picks up his, and they walk off the ferry together onto the eastern dock. The mountain's very close here. The smell of pine replacing the open water smell. The station lights a warm orange above the dock. The sky is still full of stars. The Milky Way visible as it was from the stern rail. The same sky, a different shore. He is going further up the road to a village another kilometer north. She is turning left toward the research station. They stand at the place where the dock road splits into its two directions, the specific geography of departure. The night around them is cold and clear and enormous and entirely uninterested in their situation. She gives him the name of the research station. He gives her his. This is the most essential exchange. The one that says that what happened on the water was not exclusively a thing of water, that it has come ashore with them and may be worth finding again on land, in daylight, in ordinary circumstances, in all the conditions that the middle of a fjord at midnight was not. She walks toward the research station lights. She does not look back, not because she does not want to, but because she's the kind of person who faces the direction she's walking. Behind her, the ferry is already preparing for its return.